Hello and welcome to Answers with me, Dr Chidi. I want to thank you for giving your questions in, and I'll kick off by dealing with the most popular question. Well, for those of you who don't know, uterine fibroids are muscular growths that can grow within the uterus, outside of the uterus, or actually within the uterine wall. Even though they're called tumours, they're not cancerous, but they can be problematic, especially when you're trying to get pregnant or with heavy bleeding. Obviously, there are experts out there who know how to remove fibroids, and often they will do that with a hysterectomy too. But is there a way that we can shrink those fibroids to get them back, get your uterus back to normal without the need for surgery? The good news is, yes, you can. I guess the best way to think about fibroids is to think, why do they grow so much? What is the stimulation that causes them to grow? And I would say the two hormones that are really key in this area are one, estrogen, and number two, cortisol. Let's deal with estrogen first. Estrogen, I would say 80% of the estrogen we consume via dairy products. So just by cutting out dairy, you'll reduce the amount of estrogen that you're taking in, that you're consuming. So that will stop the signaling to those uterine fibroids to grow. So anything with milk products in it, if you can eliminate that from your diet, that will aid in the shrinkage of the fibroids. Is there anything else you can eat to suppress the amount of estrogen in your diet? Yes. Ground flax seeds. Putting flax seeds into your diet, whether it's in your smoothie, your breakfast, or whatever meal you want to put it into. We always recommend a good 2 tablespoons of flax seeds per day is a healthy way to take them in. And remember, they must be ground or milled flax seeds, because you just eat the normal flax seeds and they'll just pass right through your body. They also help with your digestion and they help with your bowel movement, so they're pretty good for that too. Okay, so that's estrogen. What else? We've said cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And yes, the more stressed women become, the more signals they're giving to their uterus in order to grow the fibroids. So we found that when people start to manage their response to stress, because sometimes you can't really avoid stress, but it's our response to stress which causes that cortisol release. So the more you're able to manage your stress levels and your response to stress, the lower cortisol levels will be, and therefore your fibroids won't grow so much. We've also found that having sufficient levels of vitamin D in your diet can also suppress the growth of uterine fibroids. We often find that black women suffer much more from uterine fibroids than Caucasian women. There may be various reasons for that in terms of muscle development, but also the vitamin D levels. Higher vitamin D levels are supposed to suppress the growth of uterine fibroids. Now look, if everything fails, and it's possible everything fails, although I have seen hundreds, if not thousands of people benefit from just that simple advice. But if it does fail and you need to have your fibroids removed, it's rare that you would need a hysterectomy, the total removal of your womb. And if you do need to have an operation, most operations can be done with keyhole surgery. If not keyhole surgery, then just the bikini line surgery. Very few, if any, need to be operated on with a midline incision. So if your surgeon tells you you need a midline incision, I'd find another surgeon. But for most people, we can shrink and reverse those uterine fibroids with diet alone. Well, for those of you who are asking, congratulations, because you're on a journey that will definitely lead to your health. We know that by introducing some level of fasting into your lifestyle, it only adds to the health of the individual. It lowers the risk of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, so many things. In fact, one thing that all nutritionists and scientists are agreed on, that some level of fasting helps everybody. Now, what is the best way to fast? Well, I would say quite succinctly that the best way to fast is to fast in a way that suits you. Some people may just say, well, I'll fast once a week, just for 24 hours every week. Other people may say, well, I'll fast for certain hours during the day, or I will just reduce the amount of calories I eat in a day, for example, in the 5-2 fasting regime. Whatever way suits you is good for you. I mean, I have a method of eating sometimes once or possibly twice in a day. I've been doing that for over 10 years. It works for me. It just fits into my lifestyle. So people have to just make sure that whatever you do is sustainable and probably, if possible, enjoyable too. How many of us don't have a sweet tooth? How many of us find it difficult to pass by a cake or a donut? Well, there is some help. And by the way, this method coincidentally is named the Dr Chidi Method. And it goes like this. If you see that donut crying your name out, the worst thing you can do is say to yourself, well, I mustn't eat the donut, I'll put on weight, I mustn't do it, I mustn't do it. The more you say that, the more you will want to eat the donut. The best thing to do is to say, well, look, I'll eat that donut, but I'll eat it in half an hour. I mean, even I could wait half an hour. Whilst you're waiting for that half hour, eat something like an apple. When you eat the apple, the blood sugar will start to rise slowly as the apple is digested slowly. After half an hour, you'll have enough sugar in your blood to help you overcome the desire to have the donut. And if you still have the desire for the donut, you can do that test all over again. Perhaps at the end of the day, you would have eaten 5 apples. That's part of your 5 a day. In fact, we should be aiming for 10 a day. And the reason why it's called the Dr. Chidi Method is because it stands for don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. So that's it, Dr. Chidi, don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. So that's a kind of a superficial way to overcome sugar addictions, but honestly, there are deeper issues that are at play when we have these sorts of food addictions. And this is why it's important not to judge people. Most of us are responding to certain stress levels within us. When we're stressed, you find you tend to eat things that are higher in fat and sugar and salt. So when we're under stress, our body wants to almost comfort itself with certain types of food. So rather than just focusing on the food, what we need to start to do is focus on what's going on inside. Why are we stressed? Is there something that I'm still worried about? Is there somebody I need to forgive? Do I need to forgive myself? Those are at the heart and the root of the problem. So sure, we can have the superficial addiction, Dr. Chidi methods, but it is important that we start to look at ourselves and say, well, look, have I got everything that I'm stressed about under control? The final question is really a deep one and really deserves to have a talk all of its own. But let me just talk about 2 fundamental principles. Whatever you sow, so shall you reap. You can't reap what you haven't sowed. If you've ever worked on a farm, you will know you have to plant seeds in order to reap a harvest. And I think in relationships, that is exactly the same thing. If you want to have happiness, peace, friendship, love, well, you're going to have to sow the seeds of happiness, friendship, peace, and love. You're going to have to give out what you expect back. I remember seeing a gentleman who had 10 children. All of them were adult and all of them doing very well, lovely children, lovely people. And I asked their father, what's the secret? How did you do this? And his answer kind of fascinated me. He said, right the way through my life, every time I come across a child, I treat that child as if it's my child. That's a profound statement. He treats every child as if it's his child, with love and respect and care and warmth. And it seems that those were seeds that he was sowing into the world, right? So he was sowing love, affection, protection, peace into children all around him. And lo and behold, his children were blessed. We have to sow seeds in order to reap a harvest. Into relationships, it's the same thing. You know, that individual you're with, if you want to get love, you need to sow love. You need to show love. Not just think it in your heart, but actually demonstrate and show it. The more you're able to do that, the more you will get back. So sowing first, reaping after. And the next principle is one that we've all heard of, which is, you know, love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Seems like a really fundamental thing to say, but many of us are unable to do it. And we're unable to do it because, first of all, we don't even love ourselves. We don't know how to love ourselves. When you think about the narration that's going on in your head most of the day, oh, you're such an idiot, or why did you do that? That's not the language of somebody who loves themselves. We need to learn to love ourselves. And then when we learn to love ourselves, maybe we will then be able to share that love with others. You can't give what you do not have. So let's start building up that love, respect, that confidence in ourselves. And that makes us then better candidates to form healthy, loving relationships with those around us.